very prominently part of that episode.
So, and I definitely
that you listened to in its entirety.
Yeah, and I do remember
a few weeks ago.
I remember Paul, but I didn't remember John Gabris.
Well, he played Gino.
He plays the kid
okay.
who's getting turned out by the Catholic priest.
Yes.
Right.
And
yeah,
he's saying,
funny.
please
stop
saying.
So funny.
Well, I do think it's literally
funny.
that,
hilarious.
and actually Paul F. Tompkins as the
He's Sal
forgotten
Goodman,
member
yes.
of the Sugar Hill Gang.
Yes.
Yes.
So I was there in the backyard.
I didn't realize that was Paul, but that was
that was Paul F. Tompkins.
Yeah, one
Again,
of the better parts of that.
Doug,
episode.
you can pick absolutely any podcast. Eventually, there'll be the episode with Paul F. Tompkins.
Yeah.
He's had many podcasts over the years. I mean, in my opinion, one of the best ever, which was called the Dead Authors Podcast, which is no longer on the air because he has a new project. For those who are listening, like Paul F. Tompkins, if you have not heard Spontanea Nation, it's great. But in iTunes, and I'm sure a lot of other players, you will find Dead Authors Podcast, and some of them are amazing. The Andy Daly, where he does L. Ron Hubbard, which it was so long they turned it into 2 episodes, is some of the funniest audio I've ever heard, ever. And I think, Mantzoukas does one of them too. I'm trying to think who he does. Oh, Aesop's Fables.
Right.
Yeah, Brandon, I'm throw it to you. Have you ever listened to the Dead Authors Podcast?
Well, no.
Oh, wow.
It's over. Who cares?
Sure, right.
I don't give a shit about dead stuff.
No, you can't possibly find that
I only
funny.
want things that are alive, like food.
Brandon, actually, listeners may not know this, will only see movies that are currently actively in theaters.
I only see movies that are playing the day they open. After the day they open, who gives a shit?
All true.
Boring, you know?
Certainly to be the topic of a future podcast.
I haven't seen a movie in the theater, though, so...
That's true. So Brandon, therefore, has never
I've
seen a movie.
Interesting.
No. But Doughboys, back to Doughboys.
Should we do that? I think so. Doug, how do you feel about each of the chain restaurants here? One's about Taco Bell. I know you and I together have had a profound personal history in Taco Bell.
Right.
It's, frankly, like most, even though KFC is one of the exceptions, like most chain restaurants, it does originate right here in Southern California. How do you feel currently about Taco Bell? Is Taco Bell a place you currently go?
Taco Bell is still someplace I go.
Okay.
Not as frequently as I used to. There have been weeks in my life where I went to Taco Bell 5 days in a row.
Wow.
I mean, Mike Mitchell says that it's, no joke, his favorite restaurant, which I think is insane.
It is insane, but that is what he says now.
And he said it multiple times.
Doug, I'll ask you, why, among other... I mean, obviously, you clearly enjoy the food unless you're torturing yourself. What's one of the reasons why you might go to Taco Bell so frequently?
Proximity to my house.
Right.
Would probably be a big factor, but I do...
There's another big one I'm looking for here that sets it apart from so many other fast food restaurants.
You love shells?
You can get a lot of vegetarian options there.
True.
Okay. Yes.
Right?
That is, and also they do let me customize my food orders.
Right.
Which I do, I think, every time. I don't think I ever order anything just off the menu without adding or subtracting something to it.
So how does that make Taco Bell special?
To me?
Yeah, if every menu you've ever ordered off of is if you change things around, what's the word? He just said the word and I totally blanked on it.
Sure, if you modify
Modify,
something,
thank you.
Right.
You're modifying it everywhere, then what makes Taco Bell special?
Well, no, I mean, it's food. I like the taste of Taco Bell food.
I
can't argue with that.
And I'm somebody who goes to several Mexican restaurants, and I will go to a specific restaurant for specific things. Like with Taco Bell, I like their tostadas better than Del Taco. I like Del Taco's burritos better than Taco Bell.
Sure.
I like the Crunchwrap Supreme, which I can vegetarianize, and that's something I can't get anywhere else. So there's different things that I get at different Mexican restaurants.
You're listening to Fast Food Talk with Doug. Doug, tell us more about.
If anybody was ever thinking I shouldn't be a guest on Doughboys,
you
they
asked
were wrong,
John.
right?
John, you asked him.
I did not ask specifically what menu items he's getting in detail and how he modifies them.
Listen,
I would disagree with you on that one,
You open the gates, and Doug flows out like a mighty river. And you can't keep that in. You can't dam that up.
Nor would I want to. Doug, what is your history with KFC?
Well...
Do you have a history with KFC? Obviously, now you don't. It's
Right.
it's chicken. You don't eat that. You're a vegetarian.
I don't
They have
eat
biscuits?
it now. I did
Yeah, do
enjoy
you-
their
do you-
biscuits, but I don't.
Do
cook
you
them.
ever go there just for their non-meat
Just sides?
items?
The potato
Yeah.
log French fry things, which
Oh,
and
I don't know
actually-
what that is. What is that?
Well, instead of a French fry, it's a
Yes.
potato wedge.
Okay.
That's been, I think, like oven roasted or something.
All right.
But because they're both part of the, I think both are part of the Fun family, aren't they? Taco Bell's and
Yum
no,
Yum
Ta-
family.
that's it.
No, it's Yum Foods. Yes,
Foods.
that's Taco Bell.
So there's
I
actually,
actually don't know if KFC part of that as
KFC
well.
and Taco
I
Bell.
know Pizza Hut is.
Yeah,
Pizza
Pizza
Hut.
Hut, Taco Bell, and
and so
KFC.
Got
now-
it,
I mean,
okay.
there are ones where you can
Green
go
burrito,
and
maybe?
it's a Pizza Hut and
No,
a
'cause
taco,
that's
or a
Carl's.
Pizza Hut and a
Oh, right.
KFC. I think there's one in Pasadena that I used
Yeah.
to go to when I was working out
There's
there.
a famous song called KFC or Pizza Hut and Taco Bell, where the whole song was about how the people were at these combination restaurants,
Right.
and we should probably listen to it. No, we can't. It's probably
Probably not.
royalties.
All right.
I mean,
Too
yes,
expensive.
it's certainly protected
afford
by
that.
copyright.
But-
I don't know if we're being critical of it. If you want to discuss it in a critically meaningful way, we could get it under fair use.
Probably not.
Nope. Okay.
Moving on.
So anyway,
Well,
Brandon, I'll just edit that part out.
Yeah.
I'll just tear that right out
That's
of the
just
podcast.
fine.
Go on, Doug.
So I would say going back to KFC for me, although I don't go there now, as John, Brandon, you may know, there used to be one actually across the street from the Taco Bell that I go to, around the corner
Absolutely.
from the Carl's Jr., which I almost never go to.
Yep.
But even as a vegetarian, and I have been one now, I think going on 26 years, maybe
Yep.
something in there.
I'd
I
say
used
so,
to have
yeah.
to drive by that KFC and you could smell the oil and the chicken, and it would drive me crazy when I first became a vegetarian.
Right.
Sure.
It's like
But-
quitting smoking.
It is also associated with numerous like happy childhood memories
Oh, really? Okay.
because it was one of those things. I mean, my family was not wealthy, and so doing a KFC night was a
Right.
big deal, and you're
Sure.
getting the big bucket of chicken and the
Yep.
mashed potatoes and the gravy
Right.
and all that, and just funny family stories. For people who don't know my dad, one, I wish you could have known him, but my dad was one of those guys who, if we were at the park and there was a KFC down the street, he would throw the kids in the Jeep and say, "Let's go." But instead of driving on the road, he would take off across, the ditch bank and take
Right.
us the back way to
Sure.
KFC just because it, was purely enjoyment for his children.
Sure.
And so KFC has happy memories for me.
That's nice. Brandon, how do you feel about Taco Bell and KFC? You are not a vegetarian. You're open to either of those restaurants. Should you choose to go, do you go to either?
So Taco Bell sucks, and
No.
I don't like it.
No.
And it always makes me crazy how much they praise Taco Bell, because they've had Taco Bell 3 times on their show.
They have
and
indeed.
every time they laud it, and I don't understand why people like it, because Del Taco or I can understand if you were living in North Dakota
Right.
and you have no concept of what Mexican food tastes like because there aren't any authentic.
But if you live in North Dakota, you probably have a Taco Bell. You don't have a Del
probably do.
Taco, but you have a Taco
Yeah,
Bell.
so I'll always go to Del Taco. I've never enjoyed any of the meals that I've ever had at Taco Bell. It's not a
Wow.
place that I like.
I mean, I'm with you that Taco Bell is Del Taco,
yeah.
is the vastly better restaurant.
Superior.
No doubt about it.
And it also makes me it's weird to me that Taco Bell did essentially steal a bunch of recipes from a local Mexican restaurant
They did.
and then turn them into their name brand portion. And they touch upon that in the episodes. It's one of the things that Nick Wiger tries to do in these intros is bring people some awareness of the brand and its history and maybe some of its wrongdoing, if you want to call it that. But so Taco Bell, don't like eating it. I've never enjoyed it. I always get terrible rumblies in my tumblies. Taste of the rumblies, as Nick Wiger calls them. KFC's awesome. Absolutely love it. Probably also a bad actor when it comes. I mean, most of these fast food
I
joints.
think all of them are. They're all
In-N-Out is maybe the only one that
large, in many cases, global entities. Certainly with KFC,
Right.
it's the second largest chain, I think,
And-
after McDonald's in the world.
And I'm sure that Yum Brands is not particularly interested.
No,
in
these are
the
not
quality of life.
altruistic entities. Yes.
But getting off my high horse on that stuff, I did also have the same childhood memory of my grandmother, who was maybe 4'10", and probably when I knew her in the high hundreds of pounds, 170. So she was a very round lady.
Wow.
I loved her, but she was a
410
heavy.
and pushing
And
170. Damn.
And she was a circle. She was She just
a
walked
sphere.
a sphere. Yes, you could roll her like the Blueberry Girl in Willy Wonka.
Yes,
but she would go ham on a bucket of chicken for herself. You know,
for herself,
chicken
really.
For herself. They would buy the big thing of food for my brother, myself, and my dad, and then my grandma would get her own bucket, and she loved that shit. She'd go crazy for it, and it was actually a really fun time to kind of sit around and just spend time and eat KFC, because my mom wouldn't ever want to buy that stuff. But when I went to my dad's, because my parents are divorced, when I went to my dad's, I could expect to eat a little bit poorer and have some delicious fried motherfucking chicken, because that stuff is good.
I remember even from childhood and beyond childhood, because I became a vegetarian as an adult.
Right.
I remember that point in, at least here, in California, where the healthy thing became not to eat the skin.
Right.
And I remember just thinking, what the hell is the point?
Just grilled chicken breast.
Yeah, I mean, were you going to give up all that crispy skin goodness? And, of course now but
Well, I don't eat KFC, and I never have, but I'll say if you're at KFC and you're eating it, just eat the fucking skin.
Right?
You are not helping yourself at that point. It doesn't matter.
Right, yeah, there's no reason
Go
to try
for it.
that.
Enjoy yourself.
Well, and Paul F. Tompkins talks about it, it's a once-a-year type of place. And I think for most people, once a year isn't going to do anybody any real harm.
Sure, if
As
it's
long as you're eating something like that
I
in
don't know
moderation.
if that's true at all. If we, for all I know, 80-90% of the people who would list KFC as a favorite restaurant go more frequently.
Oh,
than
I'm
with
sure
I have
that
no
they
idea.
do. I mean, that's why these places exist, is because,
Sure.
especially if you're
Any
trying to
fast
feed
food-
family or...
Right. Any fast food, if you're going once, twice, 3 times a year, will have certainly no ill effects unless
Right.
you're eating in your car, you look down because you've spilled hot sauce in your lap, and you
Right.
slam into
The
a telephone
grease
pole.
is all over your fingers and you can't control your steering wheel any longer. A chicken drum bounces its way down and jams its way onto the accelerator, and then you just slam into oncoming traffic at 100 miles per hour.
Right,
God
things
damn
like
you,
that.
Colonel.
But
God damn you.
Accepting things like that, yes, you can eat all this stuff. I mean, that's obviously the great problem with fast food, is that's rarely the case. Now, if you listen to more of these episodes, you will find that among their guests, and I'm going to say, having listened to every episode over the last few years, 80% of their guests are kind of friends of theirs from entertainment, particularly improv and comedy and so forth. And the dietary habits, and I'm someone who totally 100% grew up going to Taco Bell.
Right.
The closest commercial development to my house growing up, you know exactly where I'm talking about. It's the same Taco Bell that you're talking about that used to be across from KFC, which I think is now Mission Burrito.
It
Is
is.
that where that had been? Right.
Yes.
I've been going there since I was 8 or 9. I rarely go there now, but it was a huge part of my upbringing. And for one of the reasons, yes, you could get vegetarian food. And starting in middle school, that was a concern of mine. And even though I certainly have any native Southern Californians' healthy appreciation for an experience with fast food, the fucking eating habits of some of the people on their show, or the eating habits they had, let's say, in college, are blow me away. Like, I had no idea anyone eats that way.
Well,
I'll hear them say, like, yeah, I had, there was a period of time where I had 8 Diet Cokes a day, or they had one of their female guests who's a comedian. She's like, literally still every night I go to 7-Eleven and get a minimum 3 items every single night, 3 food items. And I'm always like, I didn't think anyone did that.
Well, John, I mean, you, for all the listeners at home, John is maybe the most in shape person I've met, is just in a general fitness level. Like, you as a child were interested in fitness. Like, at 12, you joined the swim team, or maybe 13
No,
or
I was
14?
competitively swimming through middle school and high school.
And it seems like you've never given up that focus on fitness or dietary habits. And me, I was a heavy kid.
You've eaten at Del Taco with me. You've eaten at Taco Bell with me. You've certainly seen me indulge in foods. I'm not saying...
But you're not a person who makes bad choices.
One of them
with
had
that
a
stuff.
hamburger with French fries, and I was scandalized. I'm saying like shit that I'm thinking, well, that was kind of my point. I'm hearing it thinking, this is wildly weird. This is totally unusual. And then immediately thinking, maybe not.
No, yeah, you're the aberration.
All right.
And the proof is the 10 million KFC, Taco Bells, McDonald's, Jack in the Box, whatever that are in the world. Because if people were just eating there once a year, there aren't enough people
Well, of
to have
course.
billions and billions served.
Sure. And even I, at no time in my life could I say, well, I've eaten at Del Taco once this year.
Right.
Or Taco Bell once, unless it's only about 15 days in the year. Then it might